Hey, I'm coming to you from my teaching studio actually today, which I think I've done videos from here before, outside of my regular studio. Anyway, that's not important. What is important is what I want to address today. In other videos, I've talked about the use of backing tracks and kind of the controversy around that, if it's okay, if it's not okay. I've also talked about how to run backing tracks, and I got a lot of really good feedback on that one. I get people all the time that are writing me and just saying, hey, thanks. I've always been curious about how to do a hookup like this. You made it super simple, whatever else. So this kind of springboards off that. What I wanted to talk about is playing to a click. Now, being able to play with a metronome is kind of a fundamental thing for any instrument you're playing. Most people, when they're just learning, they're often practicing with a metronome, and that's to, you know, get your internal meter sort of on track and be sure that you have a good sense of natural timing, that you don't speed up when you play or slow down when you play, kind of thing. Now, there's a debate on the use of click tracks live. Now, if you're in a situation where you're using backing tracks, then the click is kind of mandatory, because that's going to keep you on with the pre-recorded track that you have playing. And in some cases, that track might be minimal, where it's just certain musical cues or backing vocals or something like that kind of popping in and out of the songs where they're supposed to be, in order to ensure that you, as a band, get those places correct. You have to play to a click, or at least the drummer has to play to a click, and then everyone's got to follow that drummer. Now, if you're not using any backing tracks, a click is sort of optional in a live setting. Now, I'm not talking about recording studios. I'm talking about live, strictly live. In a recording studio, it's very common practice to record to a metronome, so that way things can be synced up later. Everyone's kind of on the same page musically. Your engineers can do editing a little bit easier and stuff like that. Now, not everybody records to a click live, but it is more common than it isn't. Now, playing live on stage with a click when there's no backing track, that's kind of what I'm specifically talking about here. I do it. I always play to a click live, even if I'm playing with a group that doesn't use any kind of tracks. The reason I do it is it's security measures against things like tempo fluctuations within a song. A lot of musicians, especially drummers, will sometimes have a tendency to push the beat a little and rush a little bit, kind of speed up as they play. It's very normal. It's very common. I see it with drum students all the time. Other times you're on stage under hot stage lights for an hour, and you get tired out. You might start dragging tempos and stuff like that. So the use of a metronome live will keep speed ups and slowdowns from happening where they're not wanted. Some people will argue that, maybe songs should have this push and pull live. Maybe there should be some natural speed up and slow down. And that's entirely dependent on the kind of music you're playing. There are some cases where, yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. And then there's some cases where, no, the audience that's coming to see you is expecting to hear things duplicated from your recordings as accurately as possible. And in that case, you'd want to play those songs as close to the recorded tempo as possible. One of the big reasons I always play to a click live is many of the situations I'm in, I'm not playing with musicians that I've had the benefit of being able to work with for long periods of time. Um, if you got a group of musicians and you've been playing together for years, you're going to know everyone's natural tendencies. You're going to know that when this person zigs, you can zig with them, kind of thing. Um, and so you'll maybe have those push and pulls live, or those little speed ups or slow downs live, and you'll do it together because you're on the same page musically because you've been playing together for so long that you just know each other as musicians. Um, a lot of the time, I don't get to do that. Many of the bands that I play for, even the ones that I've been playing for a number of years, sometimes members don't live in the same areas, making rehearsal time impossible. A lot of the bands that I play for, everyone's scattered in different states, so we don't really rehearse ever. We just get our list of tour dates, and we all get on separate flights and meet each other wherever the first show is going to be. So there's no rehearsal time. Um, and uh, Other times, maybe it's just a one off gig or a fill in thing where I'm playing with a band, just one show. And you might rehearse with them ahead of time, but having, one or two rehearsals or three if you're lucky, um, doesn't really afford you the time to make that musical bond with some of the other musicians and stuff like that that you're playing with. So if you have a guitar player that tends to rush, or a bass player that tends to drag, or you as a drummer have one of those tendencies or something like that, playing to a click is going to eliminate all of that. It's going to solve all those problems. It's going to ensure that the band is going to sound tight even if you haven't had an ample amount of time working together. It'll make it sound like you have. I've done shows where people have come up to me and asked afterwards, well, how long have you guys been playing together? You sound great. And they're always shocked to find out, oh, this is the first show we've done, or this is the first time that I've ever played with them. And the band was so tight that it fooled people into thinking we'd been together for years. That's one of the major benefits to playing to a click. Now, when it comes to my own personal internal meter and stuff like that, I know where my faults are. I know that I play my kick drum a little ahead of the beat. Um, I have to consciously think in my head to pull back on the click and play in the pocket more because it doesn't come natural to me. That's just how I play. That's the way I am internally. So playing to a click helps me sit back in the pocket more. I know that, I can sometimes maybe rush a drum fill a little bit and land that crash on beat one just a hair above where beat one should be, according to a grid. So again, playing to a click will always tell me where beat one's going to be, and I can internalize the tempo and feel it coming a little bit better. So it keeps me in check as well as a musician. Helps me play tighter, helps me play more efficiently. So I'm a big advocate for playing to a click all the time, even if there's no tracks. Now, like I said, there's definitely arguments against that. But in most of those arguments that people see, where, recently Danny Carey from Tool mentioned that Tool's never recorded to a click live. Well, Tool's also been around for 30 plus years. That group of guys, they know each other on a musical level. They know who pushes, who pulls, and they know to stay together during that sort of thing. It's not the same situation as stepping into a new situation tomorrow with people you've never played with. So you can't really compare them. So I don't think that's a valid argument for people when they say, well, so and so never recorded to a click. Well, so and so was probably playing in the same band for 10, 20 years. Um, and when you're not the sort of person that does that, when you're a hired musician and you're playing with different bands all the time and different artists all the time, the click is going to make sure that you're rock solid all the time. Um, I've also heard it argued that it takes the human feel out of it. It doesn't. It doesn't if you know how to work with it. If you're new to a metronome, you don't have a lot of experience working with a metronome, yes, you can feel very stiff when you play to it. Excuse me. You can feel very stiff playing to a metronome if you're not very used to it. But if you practice with it a lot, the more accustomed you get to playing to a click, the easier it is. And the more you can sort of float on that click a little bit. I'm not saying you fall off time, but when you want a little sense of urgency, you can find that place to play just on front of the beat to sort of push the music. Or when you need to pull it back, you can sort of bring it back a little bit and play a little bit behind the click and play more in the pocket to give it more of a feel. There's definitely ways to keep that human element alive in your playing. And never once in all the years I've been using a click track live has anyone ever told me that my playing was stiff or robotic, or that they could even tell I was playing to a click. Even shows where I was playing with backing tracks, people have told me, oh, I had no idea you were playing to a click. The feel was great on everything, you know. So I think that's a big compliment, actually, is people not knowing you're playing to a click, even though you are, that your playing is that rock solid, but it's still, it doesn't feel robotic. It still feels natural. So anyway, there's my 2 cents. I say practice to a metronome on your own, practice to a metronome with your band, and play to a click live. You know, if you're in a situation where it's going to help benefit everybody in that room. So, there you go. Drop your comments and let's discuss.